Good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Bill.
Today is April Fool's Day, and can you think of some good April Fool's jokes? Or April Fool's things to do? Or practical jokes? You know, one of the things is that people do many times is they'll put something on a telephone and something on the receiver, and they'll call you and you pick it up, and when you put it to your ear...
Yeah, I know. Well, there's some even worse ones out there.
I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are. And you know, when you were a kid, you undid the salt shaker in the restaurant, and so when people turned the salt over, well, having said all that, are there some April Fool's jokes in the markets?
Well, you know, speaking of April Fools, there was a really good editorial by David Stockman yesterday in the New York Times.
A former government official.
Definitely an April Fool, I think. Anyway, yeah, it was pretty.
Now he was budget director under Reagan.
Yes, right.
And so you got the Republican slant in the New York Times.
Oh, well, you always do. They have a lot of editorials by Republicans, but this one was way off.
So what was he talking about?
Oh, he was talking about how horrible the economy is and how everything's going down, and how bad all the decisions that have been made in the government.
Well, the economic data is either April Fool's joke or it really is misleading.
Well, a lot of the data right now, at least in the housing market, is real positive. There's just been a lot of new things that are coming out.
There's very little new construction for a period of 5 years, roughly.
Right.
And we had construction constrained, or supply was constrained, if you will, in terms of new construction. And now, do you think people would rather have a new house or a used house?
Well, you know, it's funny. There's an interesting analysis about new construction. I mean, what causes people to have new construction? It's new household development, right?
Right.
All right. And so, what drives that? Well, either foreign investment,
Right.
you know, people coming in here and buying houses from a foreign country, or job creation. All right.
Or well, you also have household formation.
Right.
And
From, you know, people just going, you know, creating their families for the first time. But what's interesting is that there is a big change in the demographics of that that's driving some of that household formation. From 94 to 2003, if you look at the group of people who are 55 years and older and are not in the job market, it increased about 4.3 million.
that's the role I aspire to. That's like retired.
I know, you know, but from 2004 to the present, same time frame, instead of 4.3 million, it's 8.1 million. There's this been big increase. And so several things happen then. First of all, those people typically want a smaller house. Their household size decreases as you get older and older.
And people leave. Children leave home.
Spouses die.
Spouses die.
Right, and so the house demand gets smaller and smaller. And so when they're looking for new housing, or for new as in new to them housing,
Right.
that means that they're often looking to go to a smaller house. Well, that's driving some of the new construction. The other thing that seems to still be a driving new construction is foreign investment. There is a significant amount of increased housing that is being driven by foreign
So if you got your euros out of the Bank of Cyprus,
Yep.
then you're going to come over here and buy a house.
Right, and a lot of people are doing it as an investment too, even though housing per se, on a long-term basis, is not generally a good investment. In the short term, it can be, given the alternatives.
Right.
And investing in Cyprus right now may not be a good investment.
Well, there's this risk-return thing, right?
Right, exactly.
So let's step back a second and let's talk about sort of the level set on where we go from here, given our current policies. It seems as though, in nominal terms anyway, for our listeners out there, nominal is the terms have to do with the expected rate of inflation and the real interest rate. And so in nominal terms, interest rates are for the average American are very low.
Yeah.
Historically, on an inflation adjusted basis, they're
Extremely low, yeah.
You know, Very low.
You know, and just this past week.
So it's not affordability, right? It's
Yeah,
not affordability.
affordability is real good. We had Freddie's numbers in terms of mortgages that came out this past week indicated that the interest rate was still on the 30 went down, you know, and
So it's
even
very
on
good.
jumbos it went down.
Anything below 4 is fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about sort of a mindset. Anything below 4 is fantastic.
It is.
Job creation seems to be coming up.
Yeah,
So, but still-
22 states in the last report had unemployment decrease.
So there's several aspects to that. One is the absolute numbers.
Right.
But two, as I see my company starting to hire, that means that I have more confidence
Right.
that my existing position is going to be there.
Right. Consumer sentiment went up this past week.
And I think that's directly related.
Right. So, I mean, those are all real positive things. What I think is kind of interesting is that in the press, all of the end of last year and first part of this year, it was all about the deficit. That's all you saw. Deficit, deficit, deficit. We've got to reduce the deficit. Now, we haven't made big strides in reducing the deficit, but it's not in the press anymore.
Well, what did Randolph Hearst say? If it bleeds, it reads.
Yeah.
You know, and so we
Yeah.
need something to bleed to sell newspapers or the online equivalent.
Yeah, I just think it's strange that all of a sudden that, I mean, well, even the politicians though, you know, when they're talking, it's just not a big issue much anymore. And all the projections are that the deficit's going to pretty much take care of itself with the standard expectation on growth and jobs and blah, blah, blah. So all of that's going to gradually fix itself.
Well, so let's talk about, we've got to have one comment about the Final Four, because it will occur before our next, well, actually the final game will be after our next discussion. The Final Four coming up Saturday in Atlanta, the championship game the following Monday night. And so, any predictions? Or does your bracket, I know you had a bracket you turned in a bracket, you had to turn in a bracket.
No, I didn't.
You didn't turn in a bracket? Well, I did, and I turned in 3 and they're all doing terrible.
Oh, really? Yeah. No, I don't know. I haven't really, once my team loses, then there's really...
Well,
but
I did pick Syracuse to be in the final game.
Well, I think Louisville looked real strong, although he was terrible about that one player that broke his leg like that. That was, that's really bad.
It's terrible, and I think that the Final Four there are a lot of correlations between that and our housing market. People get very excited about the Final Four. They get very excited about buying a new house. Are you seeing some of that excitement come back in the market?
Well, it appears to be. I mean, all the indications are. Although, over the weekend there was a new tax proposal for the mortgage interest deduction.
Is that going to stay or go?
Well, this is an alternative way of doing it, which I thought was kind of interesting. The way it is today, you can take whatever you pay in interest and deduct it as one of your deductions.
Just a marginal tax rate.
And the proposal, I mean, what that does is that for anybody who itemizes their deductions, they get that deduction, and there's no limit on it. Well, what this proposal does is it switches that slightly and says instead of doing that, what we're going to do is give you whatever you pay in interest. You're going to get 15% of that as a tax credit.
That's good.
Okay, but there's a cap on that of $500,000. Okay, and what that does is that it increases the number of people who can benefit from that.
Right.
Because so many people don't itemize deductions, and so it increases it from about 45 million people to about 60 million people, which is a big deal.
And it also then puts a cap on it.
Puts a cap
so
on it.
It creates a broader base,
right?
And then it puts a cap on the total amount of the deduction.
Exactly, and so it's going to keeping that as that interest deduction as part of the tax code makes it more available to people. That gives them more incentive to have a house, buy a house, and at the same time, it raises the amount of tax revenue.
Now, are you sure the changes to the mortgage interest deduction is not an April Fool's joke?
Well, it's a proposal that was done before April Fool's.
All right. Well, this is April the 1st. This is FNC's Morning View. I'm Bill Rayburn with Bob Dorsey. You all have a fantastic week.